Hello, welcome to week 6 of the 6-week publicity challenge. I cannot believe we are at the end. As usual, I'll say it one final time. If you haven't already completed your previous weeks, go back, pause and do that now, especially last week, because last week was all about writing your introductory emails and positioning yourself as the expert stroke influencer. You don't necessarily always need a press release, as we covered off last week, to get publicity. An introductory email sometimes will do it. So this week is all about approaching the journalist and media training. Now you will want to watch till the end, because I'm going to give you an opportunity, and it's just for the say thank you for taking part in this 6-week challenge, and it's also just on offer a very short time for you, because it's all about taking action on how you can access your own media list of journalists that is bespoke for you. This is a list that you can use whenever you want. So although I want you to take action straight away, you can use it whether it's now, in a month's time, 6 months' time. It's going to be your list bespoke to you. But I'm also going to give you an opportunity on how we can send a press release out for you, or an introductory email. So do not miss out. So let me screen share and we will dive straight in. Hold on a moment. So let's get started on week 6. It's all about media training. It's all about giving you the confidence to take action, and then it's all about taking action. So let's get started. So let's dive straight in. So the media training can, I suppose, be a little bit scary, but it's important that you are prepared. So hopefully you can see now that by writing your press release or your introductory email, send it off to the media, it's going to create opportunities for you to actually have some media interviews. So whether that be on radio, whether it's with magazines, whether it's online blogs, or maybe even TV. But what we want to make sure is that you are prepared. You know, right earlier on in the 6-week publicity challenge, we talked about key messages, making sure your key messages are right. You've probably forgotten that now because a few weeks have gone past, but this is the key really to any media interviews that you do. What we want to make sure is that you don't waste this amazing opportunity. You've worked really hard, you've built a relationship with a journalist, you've reacted to either a topical news story, or you've sent your press release in, or indeed they'll have approached you as the expert because you've introduced yourself to them. You don't want to miss this opportunity. So you need to make sure you are prepared. Now, you will be nervous for probably the first few interviews that you do, or maybe all of them, you know, because nerves is not a bad thing. I still get nervous when I do interviews. I still get nervous when I do some recording or some speaking events. That's a good thing. And what we want to try and do is get you prepared to overcome those nerves, or to find a way of still making sure you achieve results. One of the things we talk about with the key messages is to have 2 or 3 key messages per interview that you do, and write them on a little yellow sticky note, because that way then you can focus on answering the question of the journalist when they're asking the question, but you are still bringing back that you can see, right, I've still got this key message somehow that I need to be able to mention. Start watching now the news when politicians are being interviewed. You will see that they don't always answer the question. They answer the question with their own agenda, which is their own key message. So, you know, if you haven't, and I know we're going over old ground, but these things are said for a reason. Practice being interviewed by anybody, and see if you can turn the questions round so that you can bring them round to your key messages. So media training is normally quite specialist, and it can start anything from £500 for half a day, or a day up to £1,000, if not more. A lot of the big corporates will have all had media training, like a lot of the CEOs and managing directors of companies, because they want to be prepared. They want to know how to get the most out of that interview. And a lot of media training also will be very specialist, so it'll either be radio or TV, or just in general. So what we want to do is make sure that we've put a few interviews in there for you to be able to have a listen to, and feel confident that you can do a radio interview or do a TV interview, because radio is very different to TV. With radio, you've got a greater opportunity of chatting away and talking about a specific topic, whereas TV, you have to think in pictures. You've got to think, how will the story look? You know, is there a media message or a key message I can put with a story? So it might be you're an engineering firm and you've just got a new production line in place. Can the TV cameras come down and record some of that? Or you might have just come up with a new invention of something. So, you know, can you show that invention? How is that going to look? So the actual media training is very different from radio to TV across the different media outlets. So what we've done is, if you go into the academy, you'll be able to see there's a number of media interviews for you to listen to. So what I'm going to actually ask you to do is have a listen to these and take on board all the different points and the ways that they are saying for you to approach them. You know, the journalists will tell you how to approach them, what they're looking for, whether they want an email, whether they want a phone call. And you'll see that probably all of the journalists will say that similar kind of things, but all slightly different. So this is going to be useful just in general to get your confidence up to listen to these media training interviews. But certainly as you go forward and you start approaching the media, you might get a radio interview or an interview with a journalist for a magazine. You can dip back into it at any stage and obviously listen to those media training interviews afterwards. So this week we are going to ask you to listen to the media interviews, and I want you to try and listen to at least minimum 2-3 media training interviews. One of the interviews that we've put in is how press and PR can actually snowball. So you could have one great story. You might be sitting on the most amazing story, and this story can really have a snowball effect. And I've seen this happen time after time. So you might put this story in one newspaper and it might go out in a national newspaper, then it might get picked up from the TV channels, so for example Good Morning Britain or This Morning, and then some of the nationals, the other nationals will be chomping at the bit. And this is exactly what happened with Vinay Palmer, because Vinay had a very sensitive personal story and it was featured in a national newspaper. And then the TV channels got hold of it, and you'll see with his interview how it had a snowball effect and his experience of it. So don't be frightened of PR, but certainly be ready for PR. You know, we've talked about before as well, making sure that you've got your press page sorted so that they can contact you. You've done your key messages, you've written a press release already. So on to the next piece of this week's final weeks of the 6-week publicity challenge. It's all about making contact with the media. Oh my gosh, how scary is that? But the fact is now we actually want you to start picking up the phone, start sending email and, you know, connecting to their social media accounts. We want you to start taking massive action. Now, PR is like any relationship in business. It's all about creating the relationship, taking the time to get to know somebody. You know what it's like through networking. You get to know them, you build a trust, a like, you know, and PR is exactly the same. So start connecting to the right type of journalists, start reading their articles, you know, commenting on them, complimenting them, connect to the Facebook page, try and be helpful, because these will all stand you in good stead. As we said right at the beginning, you know, you might only want to start with 5 or 10 media contacts that you really want to be in. So whether it's the Huffington Post or the Daily Mail or Radio 4 or Radio 2, start finding out who are the contacts, who's the producer, who's the lifestyle editor, who's the breakfast show presenter. Start finding out and doing your research and due diligence to these media contacts. Now obviously that's as long as they've got a specific contact. Some newspapers, as you know, have hundreds of journalists, and some newspapers only have a few, and certainly trade magazines will only have a few. So if you want to get into specialist trade press, they probably will only have an editor and maybe sub-editor and maybe, you know, one of the specialist kind of journalists. So now I know this potentially could be scary for you. Or could be quite terrifying, or you might completely take this in your stride. But obviously what I want you to try and understand is this is a win-win scenario. The media need you just as much as you need them. They will be on deadlines, you know, they might be slightly to the point, they might be even rude, you know, but they're not going to, they're going to not bite your head off. On the whole, most journalists are lovely. So just be prepared in whatever you're going to say to them, you know, maybe write down exactly what you're going to write. Hi, you know, I've got a great story on this one, just wondered if it was of interest to you. What they'll probably say is, drop me an email. So always make sure you have the email ready to send straight away, because what you want to do is sending it a follow-up email while you're still fresh in their mind. As I say, journalists are very busy people, you know, so make sure that you've written down what you want to say to them and get to the point, and then obviously offer to send an email. You can actually follow it up, you know, if you haven't heard back within a day or two, definitely follow it up, but obviously you know, don't be too much of a pain. It's a balance, isn't it? It's like anything in sales, isn't it? It's a balance between, you know, making sure that you're still there on the radar, and you want to see they've got the story, but you don't want to be a pain in the backside. So, but let's go through some basic guidelines for you, and then hopefully this will instill some more confidence for you. So like we've said, the first thing to do, as we've talked about, is kind of know who you want to approach. Who are your top 5, your top 10 journalists? Who is it exactly you are going to approach or you want to approach? So just spend a bit of time, you know, finding the exact contacts that you're trying to build the relationships with. And when you're contacting the journalists, it's maybe a good idea to find out their preferred method of contact. So do they prefer you to phone? Do they prefer you to email? And just ask them, you know, in the future I've got some great stories, how would you prefer me to keep in touch? You know, and let them tell you. So also ask them, what are the best days for me to contact you? You know, build a few notes on the different contacts that you've got so that you can bear this in mind. So ask them, when is the best time of day, or when is the best day of the week to contact you? As we've said before, because newspapers will all be on different deadlines. So a newspaper that maybe comes out on a Thursday or a Friday will be be working on deadlines right through to Wednesday. So they're probably right up against it and they don't want to speak to you back then. But, you know, if it comes out on a Thursday, probably on a Friday, they're mopping up any of the problems they've had or the challenges. So Monday might be a great time to contact them. But ask them, you know, when is the best time of day or the best time of the week to make contact with you. So also ask them, you know, if you feel you just want to introduce yourself to them, ask them what sort of topics or angles interest them the most, because they're the ones that know their audience really well. They might have a forward features list. So ask them, you know, do they have a forward features list? Do they know what topics that they're going to be writing on in the future? And could they send you a forward features list? You could even ask them as well, you know, would they be willing to, you know, meet for a quick coffee? You've got some great articles in the future that you want to be able to submit to them. You'd like to build this relationship. You know, does he have 5-10 minutes, or do they have 5-10 minutes just to meet for a quick drink or a quick coffee, or maybe a quick Skype, Zoom call, however you want to do it. You know, just ask, because what's the worst thing that can happen is they say no. It's always good as well. And just a little tip, you know, whenever you're speaking to anybody, you know, we're all human. We all like to have people remember things about us. So if they've mentioned they're married or they've got kids, it might be just good to try and drop that in the future, you know, just so you're personalising it, you're taking the time to get to know them as people. Maybe they've just got married, or maybe they've just been on a family holiday or something. So next time you speak to them, oh, how was your holiday? Or how did the wedding go? You know, I know it's all common sense, but, you know, as I said, journalists are humans too. So this is one thing you want to consider as well, is when you speak to a journalist, ask them, are they in-house staff? Or make a note of it, because they'll tell you where their title is, or are they freelance journalists? And this is useful to know, because if they're in-house, they're specifically working on one newspaper. If they're freelance journalists, they may be writing, so there might be a manufacturing reporter, and they're writing, you know, just for one manufacturing magazine, but they might have contacts as a specialist writer in manufacturing across multiple media outlets. So they might be writing for trade magazines, but also national newspapers. So it's definitely always worth finding out, are they in-house or are they freelance? And don't forget, as you're building your own database, you're not going to remember all this information. So as much as you think that you're going to remember that Joe, I've just had that lovely conversation, she was lovely, you know, you write it all down, because obviously what we want to do is make sure whatever time you do, you're not having to repeat the time and the research that you do in this. If you're speaking to a journalist, ask them what's the lead time between writing an article and the publication date. So some magazines will work 3 months ahead, some magazines will be a month ahead, some radio shows might interview you one day and you could be on radio literally within a couple of hours. Ask them how far in advance they plan. You know, so if you've got a story idea, or maybe it's a national celebration day that you can ride off the back of, you then have an idea of, you know, to work it backwards when to approach them. You might be writing a book and your book comes out in 6 months' time. Well, you need to start planning now the ideal media that you want to contact and work it backwards, because as I said, some of those magazines might plan 3 months in advance and you need it to fall in line exactly when you have your book launch, or when it's topical news story for you. So if your business is flourishing in January, you know, there'll be certain media outlets that you'll be contacting really by September to secure January coverage. But then there's other media contacts that you will literally be contacting in December or early January to get on straight away, such as radio and TV. So just think strategically and ask them how far in advance do the publications or the media outlets work. So we're just going to talk about being prepared, and I know we've already kind of touched upon this, but if you can, just spend a little time to do a bit of research on the journalist. You know, maybe go to their Twitter account, see what kind of topics they're talking about at the moment, what's newsworthy for them, where they're writing for, you know, how they're moving around, and make sure, you know, when you make contact with this journalist that you are 100% uber prepared. As I said, work out what you're going to say beforehand, maybe write a little introductory, you know, message that you're going to say to them. Have your email ready. I know we're going over the same thing, but this is just going to make it so much easier for you. So we've talked about this as well before. You need to try and preempt everything they're going to ask you. Are you prepared? So this is where it comes back to right at the beginning. You know, we talked about making sure that you know your business inside out, you know the topics that they might ask you. I know you're not going to know everything, but pretty much you should know most things within your own business. And you've already done the exercise where we said, you know, make sure that you've covered every question that you don't want to answer so that you know how to prepare for it, because they are journalists. Their job is to ask questions. Their job is to do due diligence. The majority of the times they're very busy people, you know, they will take you at face value, but if they've got a story, you know, they really do want to investigate it and make sure you're the right person for it and that you know your subject matter. So in time, this will become second nature to you. Everything I'm asking of you, you will do it naturally. All I'm trying to do is just give you a few basic guidelines to make it easy for you so that you're prepared, because you don't want to blow this opportunity, especially if you're going to the editor of a national newspaper and this editor, you know, could cover the story and it could absolutely blow your business out of the water and expand you completely overnight. You want to get it right. So, you know, just spend a bit of time, like anything in business, spend a bit of time getting it right in the beginning, and it will pay dividends. So for me, when I'm contacting journalists, I always find, well, for me anyway, it certainly works. And obviously when I'm working on behalf of my clients, I tend to try and send out a press release in the morning, you know, not maybe first thing, but maybe 8:30, 9, if I want to get ahead of it, or maybe 10 o'clock, something like that. But if I'm going to pick up the phone, I would generally phone between 10 and 2, because first thing in the morning, they're busy, you know, with opening their emails, reading all the press releases everybody sent to them, and working on any deadlines that they've got to follow up from the day before. And then it kind of comes, you know what it's like in your own diary, you tend to, well, I do tend to by 10 o'clock, I'm on top of it all and ready to work on my own business because I've reacted to everything else. You know, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, then they're working on, you know, pretty much the deadlines, are trying to turn things around, or they get to the end of the day where, you know, maybe they're not as open as they were when they were fresh in the morning. I guess as well, you know, in the afternoons, if they're working to deadlines, that's when they're going to be really under pressure. So it's always worth giving that a wide berth. And I always find with journalists as well, and I see it with the Journo requests that come in Fridays, it's always a lot quieter than the beginning half of the week, or certainly Monday through to Thursday. You know, when I do the journo requests, I'll probably get half the journo requests coming on a Friday than I do Monday to Thursday. It's just the nature of the beast. It's how it is. Maybe they've just worked incredibly hard during the week. They've got to the deadline and they're just taking and slowing down a little bit. So, you know, you want to just bear this in mind as well. So one of the things that could help you is knowing who you want to speak to, or using the media contacts that you've currently got. So as we've already talked about, some of the media outlets will have numerous journalists or producers or editors working there, but it might be that you've already got one contact in the local regional newspaper, or you've got a contact, you've already been interviewed on the BBC radio, and you know the producer's name. That's so much easier if you can phone that producer up and say, you may not remember me, I was featured on your radio station a couple of months back, all about XYZ, whatever you were doing. Just wondered what other producers, during the day, might be interested in this story, and if we could just take their details. A, it's a great way to ignite a conversation with them, but B, then they'll give you the specific contact. So just think about how you can make it easier for yourself. Just take a bit of time as well to read the publications, read the newspapers, the trade magazines, and see what names write those articles. As we've talked about, before, each journalist will have a style that they write in, so you almost want to match their style. They'll have the style for the way they write, but they'll have the certain style that matches the target audience. Some newspapers, some magazines, some blogs will have short, punchy headlines, very direct. Some will have more fluffy headlines. Some articles will be short to the point, 300-400 words. Some might be 700-800 words. So just kind of have a look at the style and try and reflect whatever you put forward to them in exactly the same way. Okay, so I just want to talk a little bit about how the responsibility lies with a story, if you like. And some of this has changed quite a lot with digital PR now, and how, it's easy to send in emails, whereas traditionally you'd send a press release in and it would hit the news desk via fax or via email, and it would hit one contact. And then it would, if it was lucky, get up to the editor. There's kind of the traditional hierarchy with how this works, but also it has slightly changed. But let's just go through kind of some of the traditions with it. So the process of how your story gets in front of the right people, it's the editor that is basically the first kind of to see the press release or receive the pitch phone call. So someone might pitch the idea into, and basically ultimately the buck stops with them. They'll make the decision on whether they want to run the story or not. They'll either instruct the staff or the freelance journalist to follow up the story. Sometimes journalists gets the news first, and then they sell it in and pitch it into the editor. Sometimes the editorial assistant will open up the emails rather than having it straight to the editor, and then she'll put it forward as well. So sometimes it's really important to kind of build the relationship, if you like, with the assistant editors, knowing that you're never going to probably get to speak to the editor. Sometimes staff journalists and freelance journalists can follow up stories when they think they're important, or obviously it's going to be interesting to their readers. And some of the freelancers also will sell stories in to commissioning editors, but the final decision as to whether the story will be included or not ultimately always rests with the editor. If it's radio and TV, the editors and reporters often work alongside together to decide who will follow up the story, or the producers. Once the journalist has written the piece and the journalist has prepared the story, the sub-editor or the editor then proofreads it and checks it. The sub-editor will also make sure that A, appeals to the target reader, viewer or listener, B, it's timely, C, it's newsworthy, D, it's not libelous or obviously inaccurate, E, it's fair and it's got obviously right balanced views, and F, it's obviously in line, it's in good taste, it's in line with the audience. Some journalists do like to just receive unsolicited emails because they want stories. With the media database that we have, we've actually qualified all the journalists in there. They have agreed that they, are happy to have their details shared so that they can receive stories, because as we've talked about before, journalists are on deadlines now. You know, they're having to put out the same newspaper that they did 5 years ago, but with half the staff. So they are genuinely welcoming stories. So they want to see the press release. They want to hear off you. You know, they're quite happy to get a demo or a sample or something that you're going to send to them, and they're open to it. You know, they will review your book, obviously, if it's relevant to the target market. Now, book reviews is very different, because I've spoken to some editors of newspapers, and I've spoken to the book review people, and they can have 200, 300 books sent into them, you know, weekly or monthly. So they can get bombarded. But again, you know, don't always maybe go to the book reviewer, you know, that writes for that national newspaper. If it's a parenting book, you might want to go to the family parenting editor as opposed to the book reviewer. Do you see what I mean, or where I'm going with this? But don't just assume everything's going to go in the bin or get dumped or in, you know, the junk box. You know, journalists are going to be interested, but also don't be put off if they don't respond to your email, your press release, or they can't take the phone call straight away. Also, you know, coming on to this point that pictures are fantastic. So if you've got a photo story or a picture story, definitely send that in, especially to regional press, because they haven't got the time to send photographers out or the resource. So if you've got a great picture that backs up that story, it really is going to increase your chance of getting publicity. And make sure when you send anything to the media, you know this, it already attaches your biog sheet, or it's got your contact details in there as well. And if it's a radio interview, you might want to, or a TV interview, you might want to put the questions and the answers just to help the reporter and the journalist. So really the next step now is to actually make contact. I've obviously asked you to listen to the media interviews and the media training, but we actually want you to take some steps now and actually approach the media. And I'm going to say minimum 5 up to 10 really that I want you to contact, because these are your golden list anyway. These are the people that you want to contact. Hopefully you had your golden list, you created it already, so you know about taking some action and doing the scary bit now. But as I said right at the beginning, I want to make this easier for you, because right at the beginning we talked about, you know, we know it's the emotional connections, we know it's making sure that you've got your story so that you're telling your story, not selling. So you've kind of got all that, whether it's a case study, whether it's a success story, or whether it's sharing your personal story or a national day. You've kind of got the emotional side. But now the second part to and the most important thing is making sure you reach the right media contacts. Now, as I said at the beginning, to say thank you for taking part in the 6-week publicity challenge. There is kind of a little extra added for you, but you must take action with this, because I want you to succeed now. You're all fired up, you've gone through all of the programs. It's about taking action. It's just really putting yourself forward. So yes, you can create your 5 and 10 media golden lists, or we can make it a lot easier for you and actually create a media list for you. So what I'd like to propose is and offer one of 3 ways to work with you. And as I say, this is just because you've completed the 6-week publicity challenge. You will not see this on our website, and there is a deadline to this as well. So yes, of course, you take action, which are the links down below for you to take action. So what I want you to do is make a choice, and we want to help you. So we have access, as you know, to all of the journalists across the whole of the UK, and we can search by journalists by their media sector. We can find you freelance writers, we can find you the right contact so that your introductory email or your story goes direct to them. Now, this is a list that I'm going to create for you that will be sent to you as a CSV file, and you'll have, if they've given it to us, their social media contact details, their email address, their telephone number, who they write for, what their sectors that they're interested in. So this is really invaluable. Now, the way we're going to do this is to say there's 3 options for you. The first option is we can create a media list of up to 100 media contacts in one category. Now, what I mean by one category, so you might be health, you might be lifestyle, you might be manufacturing, you might be business. So you'd say to me, okay, I'm going to go for option 1, and it's just £100 from 100 media contacts. Yes, so just £1 per media contact. And what you will do is you'll let me know what you do and who you're trying to target, and I will create that list for you and send it to you via an Excel spreadsheet, so that then that's your list to keep and access whenever you want. So that's option 1. Option 2 will be basically up to 200 media contacts across 3 categories. So you might be manufacturing but technology or automotive, so you can pick 3 different categories. So you might want a health journalist, you might want the lifestyle journalist, or the women's interest journalist. So those are all the different sectors, but I'll give you the sector categories to drop down so that you can pick them and you'll know which ones to pick from. And then option 3 is I'm also going to send a press release out for you. So you'll give me up to, you can send it any time as well within the next 3 months, because I know what it's like. I do want you to take action now, but I want you to be able to be rest assured to say we'll create the list for you. And we will create you, if you send a press release out as well, we'll send the press release out and create you a media list up to 200 media contacts for just £250. So your option 1 is 100 media contacts for £100 with 1 category. Option 2 is up to 200 media contacts across 3 categories, which is £200. Or option 3 is we'll send the press release or introductory email as well, or both. For it'll be in 1 email, so you could do an introductory email with an attachment. So those are your options. So let me just share with you now on how you can, so what it looks like, so you can get an idea. Hold on one moment. Okay, so what we'll be able to do is search for categories for you across the different sectors, but we'll be able to look for the media outlets as well as the people who write for the newspapers or the magazines or the radio station. So you can tell me where you want to be, so whether you want to be broadcast or print. I will create the perfect list for you, and as I say, you've got 3 options there to choose from. But just to give you an idea, we can search for freelance writers for you as well. So for example, we can search for freelance writers. Now don't forget, freelance writers will often get paid to submit articles. So we could say, look, we're going to look for freelance writers in beauty. And what that will do then is there's 214 freelance writers that write for beauty. So for example, as long as they've given to us, we have their email address details here so that you can connect to their Twitter accounts. And if they've given it to us as well, so you've got their Twitter account here, their LinkedIn details, or Facebook, or whatever it is their social media preferences are. So not only are you just going to get us, say, just their email address as well, you'll get the connection. So you'll obviously be able to position yourself and connect to the journalists so that you become kind of the influencer in your own right. So you'll be able to search by the media channels. So these are the media channels here. So for example, if we went to national newspapers, business. So you've got all the journalists there that write about business for the national newspapers. And as I say then, as long as they've given us their social media account details, we can share these with you as well, and we download these for you. Now, you also may want, this is our media database that we've talked to you about. You may also want to be able to access this constantly 24/7. If you are interested in it, I'll put my details below, and you can just we'll basically set up a demo so that you can have a look at it, make sure that the media contacts are in there that you want to be able to use, and you'll be able to send unlimited press releases. So if you're media ready or PR ready, you know you've got ongoing stories and case studies, you know that you want to constantly connect to the journalists, then the media database might be absolutely perfect for you. So what we can do is actually arrange a demo for you. So there you have it. So well done, congratulations, you have completed the 6-week publicity challenge. You just now need to take some action, and the action really is you've kind of done all your worksheets, you've plotted everything out, you have your introductory email or your press release, you need to send it to the media contacts. So you either need to look them up yourself, or you can take one of these options and secure them, and we'll either send it out for you, or you can have the media contacts yourself. If we send the press release out for you, we'll also still get the 200 media contacts as well. We just distribute it for you too. So thank you so much for all your time. Thank you for dedicating your time to this. I know you're very busy. I hope this is the start of your publicity journey. PR is fantastic. You know, not only has it transformed my businesses over the years, I've helped so many other members achieve massive PR success, and it's really exciting. I can't wait to hear your stories. Please do email me or put it to support@mediamatchmaker.co.uk or support@blueboo.co.uk, and hopefully we'll be in touch soon. So thank you once again, and congratulations on completing, and I will see you very soon. Take care.